And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Kirk Sale is a very prolific scholar and author of more than a dozen books, including Human Scale, Rebels Against the Future, and After Eden, The Evolution of Human Domination. He currently is the director of the political think tank, the Middlebury Institute for the Study of Separatism, Secession, and Self-Determination. And what a great thinker. I've been reading his new book, Revised. It's Human Scale Revisited. He had written a book back in 1980. Well, let's have him talk about that. Kirkpatrick, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, sir.
1980. Tell me, when you wrote Human Scale, the first one, what did you see to write that? Because I think you're spot on.
Well, I was feeling at that time that everything was too big to control, and that we were in a worldwide crisis that we were headed for without any way to control it, any way to fix it, because all of our instruments, our governments, our corporations, our systems were too big, that they were beyond what just ordinary humans were capable of doing. And we had no checks on it because we felt that whatever humans did was good, and we would continue the technology that would make humans more and more powerful. And that was 37 years ago.
Oh, my. Yeah.
And 37 years ago, I had some optimism that we were going to work our way out of it, that we were beginning to understand that our technology was beyond our control, and that we would have to rein everything in and control things. I have to tell you, I no longer have that optimism.
You're pretty pessimistic in a real way, too.
Everything I feel has gotten worse. I started the book by talking about the Parthenon in 1980 and how the atmosphere of Athens was destroying the Parthenon. It was eating away at the Parthenon, and all of the great treasures that we had cherished for 2,000 years were being destroyed. And just about that time, there were people in Greece who began to worry about this problem and said that they would fix it. Well, they didn't. And it has gotten worse. And what they have decided to do with the Parthenon is to replace the original stone statues and Thebes with fake stone.
Oh, jeez.
And put the originals into a huge garage-like museum a few hundred feet away from the original. But when you go up to see the original, you can't get there because the toll that tourists had taken over the years was destroying the Parthenon and the floor of the Parthenon in particular. So now you come up and look at it, and what you're looking at is fake stone. Now that's a symbol for me of the perilous condition that we've come to.
And here we are now, 37 years later, where you had hoped that things would get better. They're not. It's, if anything, it's worse, isn't it?
Oh, yes. 37 years ago, there was no internet.
Right.
There were no SUVs.
We had no cell phones.
There were no smartphones. And all of our technology has gotten infinitely more complex and heavier in footprint upon the earth. And I want to say, as I quote the Pope as saying, doomsday predictions are no longer to be met with irony or disdain.
Or surprise.
That's the message I'm trying to get with this book, that Yeah, terrorism is terrible. The Manchester bombing, but it is not unusual. In fact, terrorism in Europe is becoming habitual, and we wake up every month to another one of them.
To another one of them. It's almost like you desensitized to it.
And this is a decay in the system that reflects a ultimate failure, which the Pope calls doomsday, and I couldn't agree with him more. My feeling is that there is a combination of catastrophes that will bring about the collapse of our civilization within a foreseeable future.
Will it rebuild once it collapses?
Well, that is a difficult question. The reason I wrote the book, Human Scale, to suggest what could be done after it collapses. In fact, the only way that we could do anything after the collapse is to go along the lines of Human Scale. That is to rebuild our buildings and our communities and our cities at a smaller scale where humans have control over them. Our governments, our corporations, our economy. As I say, I don't have the optimism I once did, but I have laid out in great detail what could be in the future.
What will it take to do something like that, to basically downscale again? As you know, some people, as they get close to retirement age, the smart ones say, I don't need this 5-bedroom house when it's just me and my wife. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to downscale. I don't need 4 cars. I just need 1. I'm going to sell off all my other ones. Those are smart people. What's it going to take for humans to do?
They are trying for themselves individually to secure their future on a smaller scale, but clearly it can't be done. The systems that are around us are much too huge to escape.
And they're too much in place.
That one car, for example, has got computer systems way beyond the knowledge or control of that driver.
True. I mean, I remember the days, Kirkpatrick, that I could, even with my non-mechanical brain, I could fidget around with the car and do some little things and replace some spark plugs and stuff.
Long ago.
Not anymore for me. Those days are gone.
And what I want to impress upon the world, and the reason that I've gone back to rewrite this book, is that these crises that are accumulating are, we forget in the daily press of events that these crises are monumental. There's an ecological crisis, there's an economic crisis, there's political and social crises that seem to be beyond our reckoning, but clearly beyond our fixing. You may remember that it was just, 10, 15 years ago that there was an assessment by the Millennial Ecosystem Organization, the most comprehensive assessment of the world's ecosystem ever taken, that ended up by saying the ability of the planet's ecosystems to sustain future generations can no longer be taken for granted. That is to say, our humanity is in peril.
Yet nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening, no.
Say what, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you. Kirkpatrick Sale with us with his revised book. It's called Human Scale Revisited, and it's about us, folks, and where we're headed. And welcome back. Kirkpatrick Sale with us as we talk about his latest work, Human Scale. We could talk about all his works because They are spot on about where we're headed, where we have been. Have any administrations, Kirkpatrick, summoned you or called on you for advice? Because they should have.
Alas, no. I didn't want to hear about it. Actually, this administration, if Steve Bannon still had a voice in it, he's the kind of guy that would agree with what I'm writing about completely. Although I think the neocons have silenced his voice in the White House.
I think you're right.
But he is a guy that understands the dimensions of the problem and understands that the solution has to come with tearing down the establishment that is running things and leaving everything at a lower level, a lower political level, to control things, which is indeed the way we have to get out of this. Talking about lower political level, I have been for whatever it is, 15 years now, the head of something called the Middlebury Institute, which is talking about separatism and secession. And there once was, about 10 years ago or so, 15 years, a strong movement for secession in this country.
Various states, all over the place.
It has not blossomed. It has not built up. I have tried to encourage it here and there as I am studying it. But that would be the kind of solution that we need. But clearly, there's no government in Washington that is going to go pushing secession.
No.
That's not how things work.
If anything, it would create civil war to keep the states together.
That's what they do. You're absolutely right about that. At an enormous cost, the last time we had a civil war, simply for the sake of control of the economy of the South, which the North couldn't live without. So they obviously couldn't approve of secession, and for any other reason, they now would not. Although there are secession movements, a lot of secession talk, but it has not blossomed the way I hoped it would. But anyway, my point of bringing up secession was to say that is a direction that we would need to take in order to return power down to its lower level. A movement that is clearly not happening.
Would these be like little countries to themselves, like if California broke off or Texas broke off?
Well, they would be countries to themselves, indeed, but they wouldn't be little.
No, that's true. They wouldn't be. They'd be bigger than most countries.
Exactly so. Exactly so. If California broke off, it would be what they estimate to be the sixth largest economy in the world. That would be a way to go. It would already be a very big country, and it might need to devolve power down even further. But that would be, to my mind, a way to return power to the people.
What would happen, Kirkpatrick, if China or Russia, let's say after California seceded, what would happen if they said, we're taking over California, or we're going to war with California? Would the rest of this nation step in to defend them, or how would that be handled?
Well, of course not. But the point is that China could conceivably want to go to war against the United States, but they would have no reason to go to war against California, Texas. This just wouldn't make any sense. And indeed, both of those states, if they needed to, could defend themselves rather handily. But the prospect of a war between a huge country and a tiny country just doesn't exist.
What if California wanted Nevada, for example? And, I mean, could they go after Nevada? Or I guess the country, the rest of the United States, if it's still part of it, would have to defend Nevada, right?
I would, if the Nevadans did not want to join California, yes. It's just not a contingency that I could ever see happening.
Amazing.
But I have to tell you that the secession movement, which seemed so promising 12, 15 years ago, has not lived up to what I expected. But I mention it just as a suggestion of the kind of solutions that would be available to us, that are available.
How did we get this big? How did we get into this situation? What happened?
Well, from its very beginning, America has always worshipped bigness. And if you couldn't judge anything on any other measure, you judged it on its bigness. And big is better.
I mean, you're right. It's in every commercial that you see on television or hear on the radio. It's everywhere.
Well, and indeed we now have a president who is rather large himself, talking about huge this, huge that, huge wall, huge solutions, huge Pentagon,
huge defense, yeah, all that,
and huge blunders, but he isn't so aware of those. Yes, it has been from the beginning. We occupied a huge territorial continent, absolutely huge, and in fact, much bigger than we ever, of course, realized that it was. Even after we explored all the way to the Pacific, and that huge continent seemed to be the epitome of what we wanted. We wanted to take this huge territory and grow and make it bigger and bigger, and that's been the dominant theme in America since the beginning. And what I'm arguing in this book is that things have gotten too big, beyond our control, beyond our understanding. I think you have only to look at Washington and what's going on there.
Oh my God! Yeah. To
argue that we don't know what we're doing, we can't control what's going on, and we have in one view of it, we have two parties fighting each other, two philosophies fighting each other, but there is beyond those two a variety of ideas and arguments. There is no cohesion there. That's what we suffered in these last 20 years, let's say, in the extreme case, that Washington doesn't function anymore. And therefore, of course, it becomes corrupt and becomes a home for people who merely need to advance their own self-interests, and the interests of the nation haven't been met for at least 20, I would argue maybe 50 years.
It's almost like a snowball going down a hill, and it gets bigger and bigger as it keeps rolling.
And doesn't get any better.
No.
That's the problem. We have to appreciate that there is this crisis that I speak of, and that our means of meeting it and solving it just don't exist. That the government, we say, oh well, the government will take care of it. Well, clearly the government doesn't take care of it. The government's war on poverty, the government's war on drugs, the government's war on the Mideast, whatever you want to call what the government has done, simply doesn't work. and yet that's where we're stuck. We have not gone beyond that to say that there must be other solutions. And it's very hard to do that because we are surrounded by big institutions, including the media and the universities and the military-industrial complex that reinforce our worship of bigness. That's what they're in business to do. And so we don't have presented to us in our daily life a solution, but there is one, and you could say that it's the way that humans live for most of the time that they've been on Earth. I mean, if you think of it that way, we've been here for 2 million years as humans, and it is only for the last 2,000 years that we've lived with big systems, big governments, big institutions. We know that there is another way to live.
I was at a restaurant Sunday. This is funny because it's a strange analogy, but I was at a restaurant Sunday, and there was a guy and his wife, I guess, sitting at a table, a little kitty corner to me, and he ordered some pasta. And Kirkpatrick, I'm not kidding you. It looked like they brought him a bushel of pasta. And I'm looking at this guy, and he's eating the whole thing. Now, when you talk about excessive, I mean, to me, it kind of just points out everything that too much is too much.
Well, you know that obesity is a serious problem in our country.
Sure.
If something like half of the people are obese, you know that the society is not heading in the right direction. It's not healthy. It's sick in some profound way. That's what we've got to recognize. And I don't think we will end up recognizing that until the collapse comes.
And when you say collapse, is it going to be worse than what we experienced in 2008?
I do. I mean the collapse of Western civilization. There was, let me tell you this story.
Okay.
I was being interviewed by a guy named Kevin Kelly from Wired magazine, a big technological
Good magazine. I like it.
And I had just written a book about the Luddites and talking about their resistance to a technology that they didn't like. And this is in 1995, I think it was. And I was saying that the way we're going with the technology that we have, we're going to face a crisis, environmental, economic, political, and social. It's bound to come. He looked at me, he said, when? Well, I hadn't thought this through. I'd written this book, but I hadn't taken it through to when will this collapse come? And so I said, well, 2020. That had a good ring to it. Of course, in 1995, that was a long way away. And then he brings out his checkbook, and he writes a check for $1,000. He said, I'll bet that it's not going to happen by 2020. So what could I do? I had to get out my checkbook and match him and make that bet. I have to remind you that in 1995, $1,000 was somewhat more
oh, yeah.
than it is today. And it was a lot more for me because I'm just a humble writer, and I didn't have a lot of money to throw away on a bet. But I bet him anyway. And I said 2020 is when the collapse will come. And we're very close to that, and I'm not sure that is the exact date that it will happen. But I have a feeling that as we look at the world, we can see that things are deteriorating. Politically, for example, the decay around the world of the number of failed states increases every day. There are, it's estimated 65 wars going on right now in different parts of the world. Well, this means that things aren't holding. But we don't think about it. We like to pretend differently. We like to pretend that the center can hold, even as we have other evidence that it's not holding. That's only natural, of course. When nobody wants to face a collapse.
They want to push it off to the next generation, so they don't have to worry about it.
Well, we're going to make the next generation pay for it. That's quite true.
That is true.
If they have the money to do so, although we don't know that either.
That may go too. I mean, everything may go. How did you get involved in studying this? Was there an episode in your life that was, like the light bulb that went up over your head? What was it?
It was talking with an architect about human scale. And human scale is an architectural concept originally. You design a building with doors of a certain size.
Right.
Because that's what humans walk through. And you would design windows and rooms and so on, similarly, thinking about the humans.
Good point. In Cancun, for example, the doors are small because the Mayans were little people.
Exactly, and in various buildings in Europe, you can still have to bend over to get through doors. But the point is that buildings were designed for people, ordinary, limited human people, to use. Now, in the 19th and then 20th century, that is a concept that gradually began to disappear, and that had not mattered to most architects. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking that we ought to get back to human scale in our buildings. The skyscraper is a monument that has no relation to human scale. But it wasn't designed to have that.
Right.
They weren't thinking about humans. They were thinking about other concepts, mostly steel and plastic.
And how big it could get.
And ego, but not about human scale. And then I thought, well, this is a concept that could be applied to everything else in our lives, our politics, our cities. What we want is community. And that's what's missing. But we all understand that is desirable. But we don't build our systems to promote community.
No, we don't. Kirkpatrick, hold on. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back our final hour with you. We'll take phone calls and continue chatting about your great work. Human Scale Revisited. Wow, what a mind. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment with your calls on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, we're going to take your calls this hour with Kirkpatrick Sale, author of Human Scale Revisited. Now, back when he wrote the original book in 1980, he was somewhat optimistic about the future, about the outcome. What's he like now? Let's check in with him on that when we come back on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, welcome back. Kirkpatrick Sale with us. We'll get to your calls in just a moment as well. So in 1990, how optimistic were you, Kirkpatrick, about the future?
That was 1980, indeed. And I was forced into being optimistic because my editor at the time said, you can't keep on spitting into the wind. You have to give us some hope. And so I worked very hard to do that. And I saw even then some hopeful trends. There was, for example, a boom in backyard gardening.
Mm-hmm.
There was a boom in communes. There was a boom in a kind of underground way, people doing things differently that suggested some hope. But I have to say that I wasn't absolutely convinced then, and I have since become absolutely certain that these small steps, which do take place, of course, because people are people. They have to try to live out at their scale a life that they want to lead. But they are a minority, and a minority that does not have sway over a majority. And so, what I thought might happen did not happen.
Are people waking up? Are they understanding that this is a problem?
No, of course not. Of course they aren't. I mean, what they consider waking up and finding a solution is Donald Trump, and
hoping against hope.
That is no solution, as we are finding. And as I say, if Steve Bannon had a voice with Donald Trump, as he once did.
He's pretty quiet these days, isn't he?
As he did in the inaugural speech.
Sure.
Then there might be a sense that things will change in the right direction. But the establishment has proven itself too powerful for even Donald Trump to rattle.
If they gave more authorities back to the state, and if the feds just got out of things, would that help?
It would help. It would certainly help. But it would need for the states to have real power to setting their own agenda, and not trusting the federal government to take care of everything for them.
Right.
I mean, if you look at it now, the majority of states take money from the federal government in order to survive. And they're quite happy doing that. And they don't think about the consequences unless there's something like a national ID, and they've suddenly realized that you've been giving us money, and now we have to do what you say. We don't want to, but we have to. The system at the moment is essentially corrupt, so that the states do not have power and do not wish to have power, and they haven't organized their state governments in a way that would allow them to truly have a say over the affairs of their state. And as long as they will, the states themselves be on the federal teat, they're not going to change in any significant way. That the money coming from the center is simply too powerful.
All right, let's go to the phones for you. Lots of people calling for comments and thoughts. Randall in Indianapolis, Indiana, to get things started. Hi, Randall. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Ledger guys, the show, I can't get enough of it. I wish I could listen to it all the time, but I got to drive for a living, drive my truck. Luckily, I got home, so I don't have to worry about driving and talking at the same time.
Well, I got you. And be a Coast Insider. Then you can listen to it whenever you want.
You know, I'm going to do that, and I can get a bunch of those recordings.
That's right.
I sure do like it. Hey, I got a few comments. I call him Dr. Doom. He's definitely on the money. Everybody's on the take now. It's all about greed. People can't get enough. You know, the thing is, I tell people is essentially the only way that this stuff is truly going to come to a head and fix it and truly fix itself naturally, there has to be something really bad happen. I mean, really bad.
A collapse.
Yeah, a financial collapse. To where you have, my dad is 87 years old this June. He said he remembers being a child and seeing people walk up in the yard during the Depression and begging for food. I mean, people beg for food now.
Oh, it was horrible.
Now beg for food. Most people now beg for food are crazy people that can't help it, people that don't want to work, and drug addicts, stuff like that, you know, or people. ain't able to work and just don't have nobody to help them. But I tell everybody, when you have a true financial collapse, in my opinion, it'll cause a depression, and also, in my opinion, cause at least somewhat of a world war, because you look at how all of these financial mechanisms, they all are invested in each other.
Well, let's bring in Kirkpatrick on this for a second, Randall. And the one thing we haven't talked about yet, Kirkpatrick, is a major war. And if this North Korean situation heats up any more than it has, that's where I think it's going to be, or at least start. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think that's all a sideshow.
For a bigger
I don't know
picture?
what the Koreans want, but they clearly don't want a war. They would come out on the worst side of any such war. I think that's all smoke and mirrors over there. I think what our caller is talking about, though, is far more powerful than war, which is an economic collapse. And as a truck driver, he will be in the middle of that when we have driverless trucks, which is in the near future. And when that happens, there will be a lot of people without jobs, but that will continue the trend that has been growing since the 1980s of the middle class in this country, in all countries essentially, the middle class losing income. The average income for the middle class has gone down by different measures, anywhere between 10 and 20%. In some cases, individuals 50% since 1980, and this has been the cause of the great jump in suicides and opioids and the rest of the ill that is eating out the heart of middle class America, and he's likely to become a victim of that. Now, you would think that would cause some kind of major protest. The best it has caused is that they all said, well, Donald Trump will take care of us, he'll give us jobs. Well, Trump hasn't got any idea whatsoever about how to create jobs, and for all his bluster and talk. And this process is going to continue, the process that's begun in 1980. And what I would hope is that we can see people with pitchforks and torches marching. I don't see it at all. I see a descent into drinking, drugs, and sports, and entertainment, which has worked so far to blunt what you might expect to be the outrage of people whose economies are being destroyed.
When you talk about a collapse, are you talking about worldwide or just the United States?
I'm talking about Western civilization. Nothing less than that. I'm talking about the inevitable results of an exponential growth in our systems. And exponential means that it doubles all the time. And I'm sure you're aware of that Moore's Law, which a guy at the beginning of the computer revolution in the 60s, I think it was, said that the capacity of computers will double every year. Now, that's amazing. For something to double every year, that it has
huge.
a power and a momentum that is almost beyond comprehension.
And it's still happening. And it started in 1965, by the way.
All right, 65. So therefore, we are in a maelstrom that no not even George Moore himself, knows how to control or predict what will happen. It will simply get bigger and faster. Well, and I say that the result of that is inevitable. There was a study in 1972 that year that seems almost BC to us now.
It does.
That called Limits to Growth, that predicted that there would be uncontrollable decline, overshoot of all our systems, and collapse of our systems. And that is still on target now because we have overshot. And I could only hope that we become aware of this instead of Kardashian ourselves.
Jerry's in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the program, Jerry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thanks, George. Hey, I believe that another Great Depression's coming. I mean, the national debt's $21 trillion with the budget they just passed. I think the Fed has $4 trillion in debt on their balance sheets. They don't even want to balance the budget over the next 10 years. I mean, it's like, it's coming. But the thing is people will want to leave here because if it's a good one, it might last 20 to 30 years. So many millions of people will leave who came here for a better life because they'll be able to live back in their country who is economically responsible. It'll be easier to live there than here. We'll be in hyperinflation. They'll try to inflate the economy to use cheap inflation dollars to balance the budget to try to come out of the Depression. But I believe if we get in one like we did before World War II, we don't have a war or something like that to bring us out of it. You know, there'd be all kind of class warfare, riots. I mean, it would just tear America apart. I kind of think it would be like what the white horse prophecy of Joseph Smith, you know, that they talk about. It seems like we're just living in those days.
What do you think, Mr. Sale?
I think he's exactly right, but it's going to be worse than a depression. That's why I talk about collapse, why I use the word doomsday, because it's going to be much worse than a depression. We are in a $20 trillion debt, and that is a reality that will have to hit us one day. And it will be worse than a depression. It will mean that the dollar will be useless, and the silver and gold people will have something going for them. But the chaos in the streets might even prevent any kind of economy from existing, even one based on gold and silver. That is the dimension of the tragedy that I see in front of us. But the caller is absolutely right that what he's pointing to will present us with a tragedy like we have not seen before. Nothing like the Great Recession, nothing like the Great Depression. It'll be worse when the entire system no longer functions. We don't have a currency. Just think of that.
What will be the catalyst to get this crumbling started?
Well, I think we're in it. When I speak of collapse, I don't mean something as watching a building fall.
So it's not going to be like overnight.
Right, exactly so. That it is a slow process that we are in, perhaps the middle of, or I would rather suggest toward the end of. But it will be different things in different places. That is to say, we already see the collapse of the political system, but it is able to hold on for a while longer. The collapse of the middle class has taken place over 50 years, but that will get worse. The reason that people have trouble in coming to terms with this and resisting this is that it is so gradual, and that the fact that the dollar is losing power, the fact that we need to go to a gold and silver based economy is simply not available, not known to people. That's why I don't see that there's going to be sufficient resistance and sufficient change. And the reason I wrote a book called Human Scale was to argue that what we have to do after the collapse is return to community-based, family-based, church-based, guild-based living.
Right, back to the calls we go. Let's take a few more for you. Well, actually, we're almost to the bottom of the hour, so we'll just chat a little bit more, Kirkpatrick, and we'll take a break. Your website is the middleburyinstitute.org, right?
That's right.
Okay, great. And the name of the book, Human Scale Revisited. Where do people get the book?
Well, I hope everywhere. I know Amazon has it, but I'm sure the real bookstores in the world have it also.
You enjoy writing stories of human endeavor, I can tell.
Well, I don't have much hope for human endeavor, but it's all we've got.
Is there, I was going to say a trump card in the deck, but I won't use that phrase. But is there a miracle out there somewhere, a Hail Mary pass that could pull us out of this?
I don't think so. I couldn't imagine it. What I end up my book saying is that if enough people become aware, and not only aware of what's wrong, but what the alternative is, what we could do. And that's what I spend the bulk of this book talking about, what the human scale future
could do. Hold on, Kirkpatrick. We'll be back with more and final questions next. Well, next hour, Nick Redfern joins us as we talk about the Roswell UFO conspiracy. We'll be back in a moment with Kirk Sale, author of Human Scale Revisited, and take your final calls on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. Kirkpatrick Sale with us. We'll get the final calls as well. Kirkpatrick, why aren't you hopeful that it could change? What's holding you back from saying this is going to change and we can do it?
Well, I do believe that there will be the change of collapse. That will happen.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
That is not a good thing. And if humans survive from that collapse, they will have to learn to live in a different way, not trying to reconstruct these huge systems which have caused the collapse. They will have to work toward community, as I put it in the book, and I discuss the idea of community a good deal because I think that's basically what we all want, and that we do not have. We no longer have that sense of being part of a social group that is immediate, where we know people, where we talk to a great variety of people. We don't have that sense of community anymore, although that's the way we lived for 2 million years.
Right.
And I think that everyone, if they look in their heart, they would say, yes, indeed, that's what I want. It's not merely family, although that's hard enough to have these days, but beyond family into a community that I feel part of. And because I think that's a basic instinct, that would be the only sign of hope that I could find, that after this collapse, we would return to a system where we would be trying to build communities. But, of course, you can't build that on a scale of coast to coast and 325 million people. You would have to build that on a scale of a few thousand people. And we would have to reorder our priorities and our ideas in order to restore community. I think it could be done.
At that rate, though, if a collapse like that occurs, would there be a country like Russia or China that would capitalize on that and come in and take over or obliterate what's left?
A collapse of the United States would mean a collapse of Western civilization, and that would mean a collapse of Russia and China as well. They could not exist as they exist now.
Who would be the survivors then? What would be left on the planet? Who would be the winners?
That is hard to say. We could imagine a collapse that would be so monumental that human life would be obliterated. Imagine a collapse in which nobody had control of nuclear power plants.
Right.
And
they run amok.
And they would end up exploding, and we would be having a
meltdown, everything else.
Nuclear winter, summer, fall, spring. Humans might not survive that. That's not an impossible future, but obviously it's something that we would obviously want to avoid. That is to say that among the things that are collapsing, there are a few whose collapse would mean the obliteration of humans. And those are the ones that we would try desperately to avoid. And I don't think that is a likely future, but I think it's a possible future. And my feeling is that when the collapse becomes more evident to more people, we will see an attempt not to take over the government and change it, as we would try to do with Trump or whoever we thought, Obama or whoever, but rather a regression into our own neighborhood, our own community that we have around us, to try to strengthen that, to try to live within that, to have a local government. The solution is not going to come from taking over the national government. The solution will come only if we organize at a local level.
Exactly. All right, back to the phones now. Bill in West Hartford, Connecticut. Hi, Bill. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, George. Hi, and hi, Kirkpatrick. After what you just said that was very negative, I have an optimistic, very positive, optimistic outlook about the future. Let me explain.
All right. Let's
Okay.
hear it.
When you wrote your book in 1980, that was about 10 years after the Apollo mission. This is what I'm going to talk about. It talks about the space program, space exploration, and space science. So you wrote it in 1980. That's roughly 10 years after Apollo, where we had 9 lunar sorties, 9 missions up to the moon, 6 of them landing on the moon, and then it stopped because the political will was not there to continue it. And then the year after that, 1981, NASA started the space shuttle for 30 years, which ended, fortunately, in 2011. I say fortunately because now NASA has the money that used to go to the space station, to the space shuttle, now goes to the space station, which was the main best thing that the space shuttle ever did, with the exception of the Hubble Space Telescope. That was also a great thing also. Other than those two things, Hubble and the space station, the space shuttle, I think, was a 30-year waste, because all of those payloads that the space shuttle put into space for 30 years, except for the space station and Hubble, could have been put up by expendable rockets. Well, now my point is, starting now, 2017, into the near future, not only with the United States space program, and not only with the other spacefaring nations of Russia, China, the European Space Agency, Japan, India, et cetera, et cetera. But the private space companies, I'm thinking particularly Jeff Bezos of Blue Origin and especially Elon Musk of SpaceX. For example, let me read you two sentences and I'll give you my question. Elon Musk said in a keynote speech recently, he described a monster rocket and a massive crew vehicle capable of carrying at least 100 people to Mars, planet the SpaceX chief apparently aims to terraform. Driven by this ambition, the new space company had previously announced plans to demonstrate entry, descent, and landing on Mars with its Red Dragon spacecraft starting next year. One more sentence. Although the engines of this rocket will generate more than 3 times the power rating of the old Saturn V moon rocket of Apollo, fittingly, ITS will launch from Pad 39A where the Apollo moon missions flew. So my point is, with the space technology, space program, advancing the horizon off-planet, as Richard C. Hoagland, George, you've had Richard C. Hoagland on in the past, talked about being off-planet, there is vast increases not only in the horizon of humanity and the economics of our country and our planet, where instead of trillions, we could be in the quadrillions in the amount of gross domestic product in the quadrillions. So,
well, but if they collapse, if this country collapses, Bill, they'll never have the mechanism and the means to do it.
Well, doing these things do not take trillions of dollars. Going to space, as I just said, with Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, just takes millions and a few billion.
But they won't have a support system back here.
Well,
we'll be gone.
Well, we might discover things like mining asteroids, mining on the moon, mining Mars, benefits in space, all kinds of technology and knowledge and resources in space that we can't get on Earth will give us the revenue.
Kirkpatrick, I once wanted to write a movie script about a group of astronauts that went to Mars, for example, and on their way back, they see planet Earth get hit by an asteroid, and it's wiped out, and they have no place to go. What a horrible thing to happen. But in your scenario and with Bill's, if we go to Mars and we set up a colony, but something happens to good old planet Earth, those people are out of luck, aren't they?
Well, that's all balderdash. We're not going to go to Mars. If we did, we would destroy it the way we've destroyed Earth. That does not seem to be a hopeful future. The idea that we can keep on doing more of what we're doing and succeed is that definition of insanity that Einstein said. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's insanity. The idea of anybody, much less the entire Earth, going off in spaceships is insanity. It couldn't happen. It's not going to happen. And it's not desirable for it to happen. And it's that mindset that technology will somehow save us from the evils that we have created with technology. That is insanity. I hate to hear people talking about going and living on Mars. It's not going to happen, and it wouldn't be a good idea if it did happen.
Harry in Port Huron, Michigan. Hi, Harry. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much. And you were saying, Kirkpatrick, earlier about the war on poverty hasn't worked, and I agree. I would ask you, pick your brain a little bit, what specific things would you advocate or suggest that we could get rid of poverty in our country?
Well, that's a great question.
Well,
if you have that answer, you'll be president one day.
No. That's not the answer. That's exactly the opposite. What I'm saying is that no large system, a United States government, for example, could possibly have an effect on poverty. It is too big, too bureaucratic, and therefore too inefficient and too corrupt ever to achieve its ends. It will not happen. the solution to poverty, as it was for many hundreds of years, is for a community to be coherent and to understand itself as a community that would have to take care of all of its citizens, which is what churches and guilds always did in our European history to take care of poverty. Some vast system run from Washington is never going to work, and we have proven it. We've tried this war on poverty, and we have spent trillions and trillions of dollars. It's part of this great debt that we have arrived at, and we have not achieved anything that we wanted to achieve. So let's stop thinking that there is a large solution, that there is a centralized solution. No, the solution is local. And the solution is for people to understand themselves as part of a community and to reinforce those institutions, such as the church and the family and the community and the guild, that traditionally saw to it that there was very little poverty, and that poverty able to be handled without upsetting the community.
All right, let's go to Boris now in Corpus Christi, Texas, on our wild card line. Boris, you are on the air with us.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Sure thing, Boris.
I just wish I had a lot to say, but I just wish that people would learn from history and just from another countries. And I happen to go through poverty, like Patrick says. In Russia, I was picking up loaves of bread, basically, from the dumpster right before the perestroika. And then I was blessed to come over here. And over there, everybody went through poverty because everything just stopped.
Yeah.
Gorbachev was backstabbed from his own cabinet, basically. That's what Trump needs to be very careful, because it happened in Georgia when he was on a meeting with Margaret Thatcher. They ordered in Georgia was a little demonstration, and they basically sent tanks to run over people, and they said that Gorbachev gave that order. But anyway, learn from history, because we can go like your guest says, only community. Then we had to trade. We were blessed. We had honey, and we were trading for potatoes wherever with the neighbors.
All right, that's an interesting take, though, learning from history, but I'm not sure we will, Kirkpatrick.
You're so right, George. And the history in Russia was after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There was a collapse of the economic system as well, which suddenly the Americans came in to fix and to profit from. And it worked its system with the oligarchs of Russia.
That's right.
And so that became the Russian future, and the way out of the collapse that had taken place. But also the way out was that authority went from the center to the fringes. And so all of the Soviet republics, which had been tied to the center, became independent. And suddenly we had 15, 16 independent states that could control their own affairs. And they didn't have to suffer under the heavy boot of Moscow.
Which is basically what you've been talking about in terms of downsizing.
Exactly so. Exactly so.
Interesting take on all of that. Minute to go. The name of the book, of course, is called Human Scale Revisited. His website's linked up at coasttocoastam.com. So how do you think the rest of this year is going to unfold?
I think we're going to see more clumsy big systems failing the idea that Washington will achieve anything has become at this point laughable. The idea that there would be a budget that would make sense, a health system that would make sense. These have become laughable, and I don't think anybody is seriously believing that the solutions will be found there, even with a possible billionaire president. A man who has built his career on saying he would accomplish things, and indeed will not be able to accomplish anything.
Kirkpatrick, thank you for being on the program. Very enlightening and great job. Human Scale Revisited. Up next, Nick Redfern joins me with the Roswell UFO conspiracy.